Good afternoon and welcome to the ASEAN Midday Market Watch. Our guest today is Jeffrey Halley. He's a senior market analyst, Asia Pacific at OANDA. Jeff, nice to have you on the show again twice this week.
You just can't get enough of me, Brian.
Now let's take a quick look at how markets are doing across the region. And it's obviously a sea of green. We've got the Nikkei trading at 26,520.71. It's up 0.32%. Shanghai Composite is at 3,385.35. It's up 0.85%. 26,235.27. It's down 0.44%. The ASX 200 is up 0.51% at 6,633.40. The Kospi is up 1.08% at 2,763.13. Closer to home, Bursa Malaysia is at 1,640.56. It's up 0.53%. And the SGX is at 2,831.11. It's up 0.13%. So Jeff, markets are green across the region. What's your take on this, especially since Trump has refused to sign the stimulus bill and you'd think the markets would be jittery about it?
Well, first of all, I have to apologize. I use a cardboard block to control the light through the window to the right of me, and it just chose to fall out just then. So some small amounts of entertainment for you. Look, if we turn to the markets themselves, it is actually a little confusing, to be honest. My take here today is that Asia is in positive territory because the PBOC in China added quite a lot of liquidity to markets via the reverse repo for the holiday period. And that seems to have lifted China equities, and that in turn has lifted the rest of the region. And we have to remember at this time of the year, liquidity is a lot less than it normally is. So it doesn't take a lot to move markets around. But that aside, US equity index futures have fallen quite hard today. And I think there's a degree of complacency here in Asia. I don't think that same positivity is going to flow through to US and European markets. If the Trump chooses to veto this bill, he will also be vetoing the $1.4 trillion stimulus government funding bill for 2021. Shutting down the government on the 28th of December as well. I actually think some of his reasons for threatening the veto are quite valid. There's a lot of pork barrel politics and money allocations in that 5,600 page document. Nevertheless, and the Democrats are now saying that in the House of Representatives, they will vote tomorrow for a $2,000 check. That has no chance of passing through the US Senate, none whatsoever. So we could find ourselves back very quickly to square one with markets closed for Christmas and running into the year end and on a very tight deadline. So I think the situation is evolving and things could get very messy in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, and Jeff, we've also got some, and you can highlight some of these numbers that are coming out of the US later today and I think in the next 2 days. Am I correct? The jobless numbers among that?
Yeah, look, we've got quite a big slew of data coming out tonight, actually, and it's initial jobless claims, durable goods, amongst others, personal consumption. Personal consumption is expected to, expected to fall. Jobless claims could spike above 900. And durable goods, although manufacturing has held up very, very well, a bit like Europe, even as the services and consumer sector has declined, there is still a danger here that could surprise as well. So there's a potential set of quite negative data that could come out of the US tonight. And if the US fiscal stimulus bill is thrown into disarray, that won't be there to backstop that negativity. And that could weigh on US equities tonight, and by default will weigh on Asian equities tomorrow.
Now, speaking of Asian equities, the Hang Seng indexes is considering wide-ranging changes to the Hong Kong stock benchmark that will dilute the influence of the largest companies in the index. Now, among the proposed changes include increasing the number of members to between 65 and 80, as well as capping weightings at 8% and also fast-tracking new listings. Now, what's your view on all of these potential changes?
I think the Hong Kong, the Hang Seng itself is trying to stay relevant. I believe that the political climate in Hong Kong now is such, whether you agree with it or not, is that it's discouraging international investors. I mean, people are just taking a second thought about Hong Kong at the moment. So they're very, very keen to keep themselves relevant. It's a two-edged sword here. By capping the weightings in the index, you can have a much bigger representative index, a larger number of companies. But then the argument is it really truly representative of that market as a whole? I mean, I do understand the argument that huge market cap companies can slew that index, and can dominate it. But if you cap all the weightings at 8%, for example, is it then really truly a representative index of what the Hong Kong corporate market is? So I expect this to be greeted fairly neutrally by investors, particularly international ones. Although by having more stocks in the index itself, that will make those stocks more popular and more widely traded.
Now, moving on to cryptocurrencies, which is literally in these quiet times of markets, the flavor of the week and flavor of the month. Now, Ripple Labs and its executives have been sued by the SEC for failing to register XRP. So XRP obviously is one of the most popular cryptocurrencies. Now, my question is this the canary in the coal mine to get investors to think a little bit deeper of the risks that are associated with cryptocurrency? Because if something like that is banned, obviously that will throw the whole crypto market into a tailspin.
But look, Ripple itself there's a lot of debate even amongst the crypto community about Ripple. Is it a decentralized currency? No, it's not. Bitcoin is a decentralized currency that gets generated by computers all around the world. I could go and buy a big enough computer tomorrow and set it working on the algorithm, and maybe I'll be able to derive a Bitcoin. It's decentralized around the world. Ripple is generated by Ripple Labs, no one else. So effectively, they're their own central bank. They've created themselves as their own central bank, and they issue ripples. But what are those ripples really worth? Is it then, the SEC's argument is that in this particular case, that means they're selling a security, and it's called a token, not a currency in this case. And normally with a token, you get something back, but in this case, you're not. Also, it does appear that some of the principals of Ripple have allegedly been expounding the benefits of Ripple and that it's going to go much higher, whilst at the same time selling into that rally and banking themselves hundreds of millions of actual real dollars that you can buy goods and services with, not their own digital currencies. So it's the old saying, there's never just one cockroach. So for me, but I mean, whether you agree about the future of digital currencies or not, and I'm probably on the more conservative side of that, I admit, this at the moment appears to be very much a Ripple problem. But I think it's a real warning shot for the token market, the ICO market, which is not the same as buying a cryptocurrency. And if you're starting to sell those around the world under quite a few regulatory regimes, that's regarded as the equivalent of selling shares, and it must be supervised as such. If you want to buy an ICO from some strange unnamed tax haven around the world, you're taking your own money in your own hands. But elsewhere in the world, these things are pretty tightly regulated, and rightly so, because there's been a lot of chicanery and skullduggery in this sector. So I think for now, this is really a Ripple problem and not something that's endemic for the wider cryptocurrency community.
Jeff, thank you very much once again for your insights and your time. We've been speaking to Jeffrey Halley, the Senior Market Analyst at Asia Pacific at OANDA, on the ASEAN Midday Market Watch. I'm Brian Fernandez. Check out www.asia-pacific.com